Welcome to the Make Shit Happen podcast. If you're a business owner or aspiring entrepreneur who is ready to learn how to stop procrastinating and take massive action to start turning your passion into profit today, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Sam McLeod, real estate expert, six-figure coach, and champion athlete. And my goal is to equip you with the exact tools and steps to create massive success today. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of Make Shit Happen. Today's guest is Eli Wilde, who used to work with Tony. Eli, thanks for coming on, mate. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you, man. Excited to be here.
How's things going, buddy? You just recently moved?
Yep, here in Miami. I was here for a year, and Miami's very fun, a lot of distractions, and so I decided to go away for a year. Actually moved up by Tony and lived in a huge, massive 5,000 square foot house by myself for a year. Got some work done, but is really lonely. So I like being around people, walking to places I can get food, and I'm back. So this is my jam. I'm excited to be back here.
Yeah, wow, 5,000 square foot, that's definitely no shoebox.
Yeah, it was cool, like massive spot. And I had set up with a vision. I did maybe 5 events there, but I wanted to do a bunch more. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense to have that much space for just me. I say that, but I'm now in this place, and then I moved to a place that's like 4 times bigger, a huge loft where I can do events, studio, but I'll be able to rent it out and justify the cost. But yeah, I like big spaces.
Yeah, awesome, man. That's great. So I was watching your interview with Dan Henry, and something that kind of stuck out to me right at the start of the interview was, Eli, you've accomplished some pretty incredible things in your career, working with Tony Robbins specifically, but you mentioned that you've done over 3,400 seminars.
Yeah, just on behalf of Tony. So Tony, when Tony goes to an event, does his signature program, UPW, Unleash the Power Within, they put like just a bunch of sales dudes in the area, and we speak to different companies, mostly commission-based companies like real estate companies, insurance, talk about mindset, and that's how we'd enroll people into the big event with Tony. So I'd be there for 3, 4, sometimes 5 months in a city doing these events that had been set up.
Wow.
And I'd average 2 a day. So two of these like little seminars a day for over a decade adds up. And then I've done a bunch of others just on my own and all over the world. So yeah, I've done.
That's crazy. I mean, doing seminars to that extent is quite large. But I mean, how has being a part of this, I guess, changed your life working with, obviously one of the biggest, if not the biggest life coach in the world? Like, how was working with Tony, and how did that kind of change your life?
So many things on a personal level. I mean, who he is, in my opinion, as a man, as a mentor, as a leader, obviously has a skill set, but the heart set, he cares. He spends more plates in a day than I think anybody in the world. People just have no idea who he is behind the scenes and the amount of preparation that comes. So definitely just being around him in that community. And everybody works at the company too. They're not in it for money. They really want to make a difference. The work really does change people's lives. And so there's just a different standard that shifts everything you do. And you put yourself in that environment with those kind of people, and you can't help but to be changed by it. On the event side, doing it, I talked about mindset. I talked about communication. I talked a lot about the aspects of life that it takes a person to be successful. And, speaking about every day kind of forces you to live it. Otherwise, you're not congruent. You don't have the impact. And so it came to me early on in my career that if I was going to be impactful, I was going to have to be congruent, making sure that there weren't just a bunch of words I was saying, but I was a living example, because that congruency is what really allowed me to hold people to a higher standard themselves and ultimately sell them. And so it was a lot of just great reps going out there. And the job that I had for Tony doing these daily events was the same job that Tony had for Jim Rohn. So that's kind of the lineage. And there was other people for Jim Rohn. He talks about Earl Schoaf doing this, the network marketing. And, anybody, I think, if you want to be successful in business or sales or whatever, you need to find somebody that has had success, work for them or be around them, maybe learn from them. And I saw Tony And he talked about proximity is power. You got to get around these people. And I was like, I want to be around that dude. And so that, that just shifted so many things for me on so many levels. And it's what really allowed me to build what I have now.
Yeah, wow. And what are you still working with Tony in any capacity at the moment?
No, it's, I'd say we're friends. I mean, if I text him, he'd respond back. We don't drink beers on the weekend and go out and party and stuff like that. But he's an amazing guy. And I broke off 2 years ago, maybe about 3 years ago officially. And then I spoke at an event of his 2 years ago. And still friends. He messaged me not long ago, sent me his new book. And just a great guy, but completely do our own thing. And oftentimes I would speak at my own events, or I'd get the opportunity to speak because people say, oh, you're Tony's top guy. What are you doing differently? And I'd go into companies or, other coaching businesses and show them what we were doing or what I was doing specifically, because I would often outsell the rest of the people on the team. And we all had the same product we're selling, same script, same words, same price points, everything the same, but my sales were so much more. And for me, I wasn't initially, when I first started doing coaching, I knew I could do things really well because I believed in it so much and I trained like crazy, but I didn't know how to replicate the system of what I was doing. And so the last maybe 5-6 years, since 2015, I started my own training company, and not just studying myself or Tony, but looking at other people in the industry that I became friends with. And I'm friends with all of the other top sales trainers. Like, we share strategies and ideas all the time, because I'm just looking for those slight edge principles in what people are doing, saying, communicating, being, that allow them to be effective. And so over the years, we just developed a process that can help people become, more influential, better salespeople, stronger psychology, and make more money.
That's pretty incredible. When you talk about how you're making more sales than everybody else, you got the same product, same script, what were you doing differently?
Looking back on it, part of it, like, I am the self-proclaimed largest Tony Robbins fan on earth. My level of certainty that it can have an impact on somebody's life, it was just through the roof because I lived it. And I didn't have money when I signed up for it. And so if somebody told me they didn't have money, I was like, because I didn't have money and I did it, I was like, that's no big deal. So I had some linguistic things that helped me handle it, but I had an energetic belief and a certainty behind my words that allowed me to penetrate somebody in an emotional way, where it created a bond and I held them to a standard of what they could do. So that was part of it. And, I always tell people this, as great as Tony is, and I think he is the best, so I'm not here to poo-poo on Tony Robbins at all. I often ask some of the people that I would train initially, and even now, as great as Tony is, he does these events, and there's, like 10,000 people. Yeah. Like, do you think everybody there likes those events? No. Tony's saying the F-bomb, he's cussing, it's cold, and it's just really big, and you can get your money back after the second day if you're not in love with it. And at those events, because I was so committed, I wasn't making any money, I would stand at the customer service booth and I would do my best to turn people around, to convince them not to give in their money, to go back in the room and fully experience the entire time. And I would often succeed in getting somebody to overcome a really strong objection when they were ready to leave and get their money back. And I did it not for money, I did it because I believed in it. But also, that got me some conflict negotiation skills that I wanted to master, and I knew I needed the reps. So I got a ton of experience, and I wasn't doing it for money, I was doing it for a purpose to serve. And on the flip side, I always tell people, there's people coming to the customer service booth. Maybe they got burned, or like from the firewalk, or some little thing happened, and they're irate. And I couldn't always turn them around. They said things that they didn't like that were true. Like, Tony did say this, that, did do this thing. Not that he was being a bad guy. He's just there to kind of be in your face in some moments. And some of those people, really angry, hated Tony Robbins, hated me, hated our product and service. And now here's the principle. If you're selling something, no matter how good it is, there's going to be people that don't like it. Now, if I did a presentation and I blank, or I get no sale, if I don't manage my own psychology going into the next sale, that next sale is already lost. And so for me, I was able to create some rituals and standards that prime my psychology to be that way, because I had references that could say, oh, well, the product doesn't work, or the events don't help everybody.
Yeah.
And if I believed that, I would go into my next presentation with uncertainty. And uncertainty was my biggest asset. And so I think, and part of my mantra was always this when I was selling, because people were really uncertain. When I was pitching, I was a stranger talking about you giving me all your money for some random program with some random guy that was on the other side of the country sometimes. And people had lots of uncertainty. And when two people meet, the person that's more certain will influence the other person. So my mantra was always, my certainty overcomes their doubt. But once I got really good, I created frames and questions and conversations and told stories that increased their doubt. So not only did I have more certainty than they had doubt, I increased their doubt in themselves, in their future, in their patterns, and how they're thinking and acting and making decisions based on their past references that made them begin to look internal and doubt themselves. Now, as they're doubting themselves and what they're currently doing, and they see me with certainty talking about a process, it's the pain that I've associated there gets them associated to the possible opportunity where they're willing to be led in that way. But if they believe everything's perfect and they're certain in what they're already doing, they have no need. So yep. I was certain, I had a certain opportunity, and I created doubt in themselves and their ability to get what they want with their current thought process or patterns. And so that was the how I was able to balance the scales in my favor. And once I realized it, I created systems and processes inside of our sales seminars and events and scripts and phone calls that were repeatable, that I repeated, first of all, just for myself. So I'd have a system for enrollment, but then I started to give that to other people and they had similar success.
It is really quite powerful. Like if you truly do believe that your product or service or whatever it is that you're offering can truly help people, your self-belief in you trying to close the call or just have a conversation with somebody, it's much more powerful in that respect on how it comes across from you to them. I've definitely noticed that myself in my career in property, and if I know what I'm selling is going to help them, then I come across as more certain than their doubts do. So it is very, very powerful. When it comes to when you talk about you mentioned NLP and priming yourself before a call or before an event or before you start your day, what were some of the things that you did to kind of start or prime yourself mentally for the day or before a call, before you get on, to make sure that you had the right mindset going into it?
The four things that I think you need before any sales call or interaction is, well, the fourth of the four is rapport. And I think a lot of people, when they're going into a sales situation, they're trying to get rapport, responsiveness, trust. Hey, I'm just like you. Oh, Australia, I've been to Australia. Oh, Wisconsin, I once, they're like trying to find commonality, but trying to just get somebody to like you for the sake of liking you almost guarantees they won't like you, because it's manipulative. Try to get somebody to like you so you can sell them something. And people have they played that game. And if you're in a sophisticated market or a saturated market, or you're calling on a company where they get called by a lot of salespeople, they automatically just put you inside of a bucket. And so what is it we need to do beforehand to, like you said, prime ourselves to create a state that's very magnetic and attractive? The first thing is always belief that I touched on, but I have beliefs that I would condition about myself, about these people, that were empowering. And I've definitely had presentations and calls where I could feel the belief in the other person that they were like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't need to hear what you have to say. And they would say that verbally or, with their physiology, that they didn't want to hear what I had to say. And my belief was just stronger. I was like, wow, this person really needs to hear what I have to say. I was certain, but I was and I had, this gravity and this weight and this foundation of belief inside of me that was more conditioned and more committed to connecting and just helping the person than they were committed to staying the same. And so the first is belief. I had lots of beliefs that I would review before my calls. I made sure I was in a great physiology, moving and breathing, maybe doing some push-ups. I would often drive 2-3 hours to a meeting and your back hurts. So I'd stretch, get some energy in my body. And then I made sure I had an outcome. And, for every interaction, I know Napoleon Hill talks about this in the book Think and Grow Rich, says all successful people have this thing called definiteness of purpose. Another way we say it is just a clear outcome. So I knew if I was going to lead the conversation, I had a clear target of where I'm taking these people. And if you just have a target to get a sale, you'll actually get more sales, but you'll come off a little bit like pressury, like you're pushing somebody towards a sale. And so I began to think and create strategies for realizing this, that all actions, somebody buys or doesn't buy, all outcomes are preceded by thoughts and feelings. So I got really technical. I was like, well, if they're thinking this and they're feeling this, that's going to precede the action. If they're thinking this and they're thinking this, well, that's going to precede not buying. So I made sure that I installed the thoughts and beliefs and feelings in people throughout my communication and presentation that would prime them to buy. And so I got really clear, who are these people? Why is this important to them? And the fourth thing I mentioned is rapport, but rapport before the call or seminar. And I always say this, there's this legal term called quid pro quo. It means you give something before you get something. You give a little to get a little. And if I want people to like me, how do I show up in a way with people that I've never even met and have them really know that I like them, that I love them? And I could be talking to say a used car lot. And if I go in there with the mindset like, oh, these are broke people, these people are jerks, and we're going to be combative if that's my mindset. So I need to condition myself and think like, what's great about these people? Like, what do I love about these people? Like, why is this so important to these people? What's going to mean to these people? And now I'm showing up with authentic empathy and caring and concern. And I don't want to just go through the motions. I don't want to read a script. I don't want that. This is my life. Like if you work 40, 50 hours a week, this is a large portion of your life. And I don't want my life to be one of going through the motions. I want it to mean something, and it's not going to mean something to me. And it's certainly not going to mean anything to them unless I make it mean something that's empowering me and makes me want to do it. I've done thousands of seminars, and I don't wake up every day like, yay, another seminar, yay, another coaching call. But, I make sure that I have something to empower me to want to do it and not force myself to do it. Because you're going to have days that you don't want to do it. And so the only way that we push past that is to have a vision that's bigger than ourselves, that's bigger than the moment, that we can live into. And that's what I think are the things you need to do, embody and condition within yourself. And you could start your day with it. You could start your calls. After 17 years, it's kind of become automatic, and I can feel it just kind of click in. But it's not by chance. It's lots of conditioning over years.
Yeah, wow. And that's a very good way to look at it too. Like, I think, like I remember when I first started in sales and I had got my hands on my first script and I was reading it, and I didn't do any role play. I just got straight on the phone. I was like, I'm going to close some sales. Here we go. Started reading the script, and I recorded my call so I can go back and listen to it that day. And it just sounded robotic, and it just wasn't good. It didn't come across authentic, didn't come across like I cared, didn't come across like I was being, true to myself when I was reading the script. And so, I started doing a lot more roll call in the morning, and, I changed and tweaked a few things. And I definitely felt like that made a massive difference for myself. Like every day, like in sales, it only takes, one phone call to become, I guess, rusty in that sense, for a lack of a better word. And, I do think that role playing is very, very crucial and very important to sales, depending on your job. Like I tend to do it every morning for about half an hour to 45 minutes before I hop on calls and speak to clients, which I think is very, very, very helpful. When it comes to, I guess, sales as a job, what's your view on sales, Eli? Because a lot of people, I don't know about over in America, but in Australia, for instance, there's a lot of tall poppy syndrome in Australia. And it's when it comes to, coaching, online courses, sales, even mentoring, even though a lot of people do it here in Australia, it's not widely or publicly spoken about. And for instance, probably I'd say the biggest sales job in Australia would have to be real estate. And, I remember when I first started real estate and people would ask what I did for a job, and I'd say, I'm a real estate agent. And you get that look from people where they go, they're one of those typical sleazy salesmen, in real estate, or you guys, all you care about is money. And I know that's not true myself, but I've gone from being in residential real estate to project sales, then to going into property development. And so I've gone through a bit of a natural change over the years in how I do sales and what kind of sales I do. Going from B2C to B2B is very, very different. And so I'm just keen to get your take on sales, because a lot of people do view sales as a negative role in life. But in my opinion, I think arguably it's the best job in the world that you could possibly have, and the best job in the world that you can get. And there's so much freedom attached around this job, and it's really up to you to make of it what you want. So I was really interested to see what your view is on sales.
For me, first of all, I think sales is amazing. You can make more money than most doctors, and it's a fascinating gig. This is where businesses are won or lost. And when you look at all the internet billionaires and people that have really made it big, like a Mark Cuban, or you look at some of these guys, they say the first skill they developed when they were young is sales. It's the only part of your business that brings in money. Accounting, customer, like everything costs money. This is the only thing. And they say if you want to be good in business, well, you've got to be good at sales. And the people that are saying that sales is sleazy inside, none of those people own their own business. So they're all people that know nothing about business, first of all, and so you really have to, because in my world, part of the reason that I've become popular, and we don't do any marketing or anything, but I've coached a lot of the biggest sales names and brands, that they realize they're hungry to talk to me, because they know that what my advice can do for their business. If they got a 20% close rate, I can come in and literally with no extra ad costs, I can double your revenue if we get you to 40%. And so you better appreciate me. Otherwise, and so it's for me also on the flip side, I never wanted to be in sales really. I got a job selling dental products over the phone. And I was terrible at it. And I started reading, spin selling, all the basic books, and proved a little bit. But then I read books like Think and Grow Rich and all these principle-based books and scripting stuff, but a lot of it, I didn't articulate my words. I didn't communicate well. I wasn't confident. I mumbled. I slurred my words. I'd lie about how many calls that I made, that day. I didn't follow up. It wasn't so much just the skill set, which was really important, and I got that, but it was also just my character and my mindset and my belief about what I was doing. And when I saw Tony Robbins at the event, I was just mesmerized, and I saw him turn around a suicide. And I thought to myself, if he can turn around suicides like that, I wonder if I could use those same techniques to turn around sales by connecting, finding gaps, defining the problem in solvable terms. Some of these things that he was doing in the interventions, we pulled into a sales process where people were happy to be sold. And I would often do my presentations, people, putting it on 3 credit cards and with tears in their eyes saying, thank you so much. It's changed my life. Like, you being here today gave me hope. And I'm all in on me. It wasn't just the program, I sold them on themselves. And so depending on what you're selling, and if you're in sales 20 years as a career and you pop around a bit, there's no doubt that you will have to sell some shitty things at some point, like some widget or something you don't really believe in. But you can learn there too, because it's just, I really do think that sales is almost, there's a spiritual component to it, because this is where you're dealing with people, and sales in and of itself, it's a logical understanding of a very emotional process. To understand sales is to understand people. And when people buy things, nothing moves in this world till it's sold. And it's really understanding what are the drives that get somebody to take action. If you can understand how to move people towards sales, you can understand how to move people, and you're much more valuable. If you're the person that just wants to be the idea person and not execute, not know how to get money, you're not going to be very valuable to a business. Part of the reason I wanted to be really good at sales is because I wanted to be valuable. And maybe it's my insecurity. I wanted Tony to acknowledge me. I looked up to him like a second father, and I just wanted to be good. And I remember when I was living with Tony's son, Jarek, he said this to his son, and Tony communicates these little voice note audio messages, and he sent a long one to his son, and his son let me listen to it. He said, it's one thing to be a good speech maker, and people clap for you and tell you that you're great, because people are generally pretty nice. Some people are jerks, but most people are pretty nice. But he says, if you want to find out if you're really good, You won't know from the claps because people ultimately vote with their dollars. You're good if people are paying you because they saw value in you. And a big part of what you offer through sales could be the value of the home, but it's also the value of the presentation and the person. That's the difference between a luxury real estate agent and one that's, flipping whatever, like in the ghetto. And so it's that professionalism that you do and who we get to be can put somebody at ease. And I think it's one of the best things in the world. So in my world, sales isn't sleazy at all. It's awesome. And that's because in my world, I connect to business owners all the time, not broke people. I connect with people that understand the importance of sales. And if you just want to be an artist, starving and dying on the side of the street, living, without selling, that's fine, but you're never going to make any money. And I don't believe you really believe in yourself, because you believe in something enough, you want people to have it. So you got to sell it to them, and they need to pay appropriately. Otherwise, your business is never going to take off. So nobody that understands business thinks that way of sales. And so those people are just dumb.
So your essentially view on sales is, if you truly do believe in your product and you truly do believe that it can help somebody, then there's really no sleazy aspect to the sales at all, because deep down that this product or service is going to help someone.
Yeah, I mean, you have a moral obligation, as Jay Abraham would say, to sell them. And they're not going to be properly invested if you give it for free. And the company is not going to survive. So it's a highly moral thing to do. And it's, when you build the business and you sell, then you can hire employees and, they can eat and you can provide jobs. All of that puts money in the door, and no business or human being survives without money. So it's all sales. And I think, when it's person to person interaction sales, I think because we've all had a bad experience in selling. I think some people are tainted with that. And there's this cheesy phrase that people say, people love to buy but hate to be sold. People love to buy and they love to be sold. They hate to be convinced. They hate to be pushed. But when you're properly sold and somebody makes you feel taken care of, they answer all your questions, they educate you, they walk you through your uncertainty that would otherwise keep you from having the thing that you already raised your hand and said you want to have. And so we're walking people through their resistance that would keep them from having something that deep down they want. And so we have to stand in the fire with them as a strong professional and move them ethically without pressure towards the desires that are inside of them to line up with the life, product, service, or thing they could have and the possibility of that in their life. That's sales. And so we're just moving people through resistance. Sales is not just something you do in business, though. It is a life skill. It's getting the fancy restaurant that's booked at with your girlfriend or your boyfriend. It's, getting upgraded to first class for free. It's just communication over and over again. And if you can do that ethically with persuasion, you can become a star. It's really amazing what you can do in sales.
So when you say people don't necessarily, you say the catchphrase is people don't like to be sold to, but you say people do like to be sold to. They like to be, is it convinced was the word that you used? They like to be convinced that it's the right product.
Don't like to be convinced. They don't
like to be convinced. So what would be an example of that?
Well, I mean, like my Apple iPhone, I didn't have to be convinced. It's just I wanted it.
Yeah.
My Range Rover, like I wanted it. And so it's like something there. And of course there was some negotiation back and forth with the car at least. But it was a fun process for me. Convince is trying to get somebody interested in something they really don't want or that's not in their best needs.
So in your opinion of the product or service, like should the product or service be that valuable in the potential customer's eyes, essentially, that the product should sell itself to some degree?
No. Well, there's this research company called Hathaway, and they broke it down in their research that 53% of the success of a sale comes down to not the product itself, not the customer service, like not even how much they like the product. 53% of satisfaction with the product came down to the buying experience. If it was a shitty experience when they were sold, they're not going to enjoy it and they're not going to come back. So creating a real business will come down to the professionalism of the sales interaction.
Right. So it's more based around the person that's on the call.
Kinda, yeah, the process.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say has been one of the biggest things that's helped you in your career in sales?
Some of the things we talked about, but believing in what I do, believing in people, understanding resistance,
Yep.
having beliefs about what that is, and not taking things personally.
Yeah. Just having a bit of thick skin. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
true. Like, I mean,
empathy and understanding and sensory acuity. So I'm aware, not so much thick skin, but it's an awareness of the sensory acuity. Like I feel it, and I feel what's coming up for them. So I've got empathy and sensory acuity, but I've got behavioral flexibility to move them towards my outcome. And so it's not just thick skin because I'm feeling everything, but I know that it has nothing to do with me. And so Mother Teresa, for example, said that all communication is a loving response or a cry for help. And if they're not giving me a loving response, I know it's a cry for help. And if somebody's angry, they didn't start out that way. It's a learned behavior based on a past association that has nothing to do with me. And they're frustrated, they've got shame and guilt because they've made bad decisions in the past, and they're projecting that onto this call. And so I just might need to connect, put them at ease, and dig a little bit deeper and find out what's driving the behavior that we see, and just help them embrace and resolve their concerns together. That's all we're doing.
That's quite a quote. I remember Tony actually mentioning that about Mother Teresa. It's either a cry for help. What was the second one? A cry for help, or
it's a loving response or a cry
loving
for
response or a cry for help. Yeah, I've heard that before. It's when you break it, when it gets broken down like that, it definitely makes a lot of sense, and it's very powerful, very, very powerful when you can look at it from that way. When it comes to, getting back onto sales calls, and, a lot of people do struggle with, making calls and pitching people, and they feel very uncomfortable. They might be a bit nervous because they've just started in a sales role or a sales gig. What's one thing that you would recommend helping people to overcome their nerves when they're getting on the phone and they're pitching people with either their product or service?
Well, ideally, you should role play as much as possible. And if you do have scripts and all that stuff, the time on the call is not the time to practice your script. When I had scripts and all of that, I would make note cards. I would take my script. I would read certain parts of it out loud over and over again, over and over again. I mean, like 100 times saying one sentence. I'd record myself saying my script. I would listen to myself, record it. If I did a call, I would record the call. I'd listen to myself over and over again. And so it's like a lot of times, people say, well, how do you deal with the nerves? Well, I'd say if I was as fucking unprepared as you are, I'd be nervous too. It's like, you should be scared. Like
yeah,
you
should be nervous.
That little. You should. There's a reason you're nervous. Like one, you can just hope that it goes away and pretend it's not there, or you can do something about it. And that's called preparation. It's like then there's only so many objections or so many things that people can say, and there's only so many emotions driving it. And so you need to understand a little bit of it. But, getting comfortable, asking for money, role playing with people, all that stuff is ideal. When I started, I didn't do that though. So I was pretty nervous initially. And thank God I was nervous. Thank God that I was scared. Now I look back, if I'm scared, it just means that I'm not prepared. That is a sign from my genetics, my evolution, from God, whatever you want to call it. Hey, this means that I should prepare more. So it's. I tell people all the time, they're like, man, if I was as unprepared as you are, I would be pretty scared too. Yeah.
100%. No, it definitely comes down to just practice. And as you said,
there's an external practice side of things you do and say, and then there's an internal conditioning side of who you be. And you have to do and go through the reps a lot. And one of the things, like with me speaking at so many seminars, not only that developed me in my external communication, it developed me in my internal communication, where now, if I go into a new situation, say example, Michael Jordan, he practices all the different moves, and he gets into a game situation where two guys are coming at him and this guy's on the left, and he's never been in that situation before. he still will create some magic because his internal certainty is conditioned, because you can't practice for everything. And so as you're conditioning yourself to go through the reps, you can't say, well, what if exactly this at exactly this time? And you can't practice every scenario. So what you can do is you can condition your certainty about who you are, about what things mean internally. And now you've got like a North Star inside of you guiding you through the chaos, because you can't prep for everything. But part of the reason you prep is conditioning you, not just in what you say linguistically or verbally, but you're conditioning yourself emotionally to be able to handle anything that shows up. And so now, if I'm speaking at a seminar or whatever, obviously I prepare, I think, who are these people, the things that we went over, and I do it relatively quick. But part of me, like, I want to get into situations that are new for me because I'm going to learn and it's going to be exciting. And I get to, play right now. So there's different levels to it, but it's a practice of not just what you need to say, but a conditioned state of who you need to be.
So, talking about conditioning and self-belief and all of that, when it comes to, working with Tony, how much of Tony has rubbed off on you working with him for as long as you have, and how much self-belief did you get from being around Tony?
A lot. When I would do these presentations, and I've spoken at some really big companies too, and there are some big Tony fans, and they're just like, man, that thing that Tony has, you have it. And I don't have it at the level Tony is, but even before I met Tony, I authentically cared about people. I noticed patterns, and I thought deeply about this stuff. And I believe in people, like I like people. I want to see people succeed. When people are giving me bullshit answers, I'm able to challenge them in a way that feels aligned and doesn't feel combative. And so some of the elements of what he is, I have in me too. He's got them more. I'm not comparing myself or saying, hey, I'm just like Tony at all. But in that context of sailing, I was able to already be living some of it. And then when I saw Tony do it, it held me to a standard where I wanted to develop that in myself. So he created the desire, he created the standard, and he gave me tactical tools to embody. And seeing him at those events, seeing him create magic, and people standing, for 2-3 hours and they're tired, or I'm at an event for 12 hours, I'm exhausted. He's on freaking stage for like 15 hours straight with no breaks some days, and this hardly slept. And I'm just like, wow, like this just makes me want to become so much more. And I think, I hope we all meet somebody or have somebody in our life that gives us a little bit of it, but he gave me a lot. And he's changed everything for me. He's an amazing guy. Like I said, I'm a huge fan.
So when you talk about, he has that thing and they're saying you have that thing, what are they talking about? What's this thing that they're talking about?
Belief, empathy, certainty, the capacity to connect with a human being, to get rapport, to be genuine, to be sincere, to have, the sense of leadership and gratitude and a positive intent behind what you're doing, and to be present, to be in the moment.
And are you looking to, emulate what Tony does to some degree, or are you looking to do something completely separate? Because I know you've got your online sales course on your website.
Yeah.
So are you looking to do similar things to what Tony has done in the future, or are you more looking to go down your own path?
Well, it's similar in the sense that we're doing these. So I've seen like every sales training out there, the question-based ones, all the scripts, all this, and it's really good stuff. But a big part of it is who the person is. So we have courses where we develop people in not just what to say, but in who to be. And, all of that, kind of like he has his breakthrough programs where people get rid of their limiting beliefs. We've used some of those same, vernacular and related it to salespeople and sales process, where the prospect might have limiting buying beliefs, areas of uncertainty. And so I've taken my processes, watching Tony do what he does, and I've infused those into a sales process. And our tagline is always, sales doesn't have to be transactional, it can be transformational if people know the process. So we have programs where we teach that process around who to be, how to create space, how to challenge, when to do what and why, in a syntax that always leads to people being better salespeople, but also just better people. And we're starting to do some events. We've done some small ones. Where have you done Tony's UPW?
I haven't done it. No, I haven't gone to it.
He's got this event.
I want to though.
Where, well, you should do it quick. He's not going to do a lot more. He's doing one a year now, and I don't think he's got many more years doing them.
Really?
But yeah, if you can do 5, it's great. But there's even virtual now for a few $100 people can do it, and it's awesome. It's like these long events, and People have limiting beliefs about who they are, things in their past. As a salesperson, you deal with a lot of shit sometimes. People being mean to you, all of it, or you don't get a sale, and you're like, I should have said this. We beat ourselves up, or we feel angry. And so I think as a salesperson, you take on a lot of negative emotion, or you might have some emotions inside of you. So one of the things that I've done for entrepreneurs, some really successful people, is just walk them through emotional processes that have helped them release that, neutralize that, change that. And so we're starting to put that into group programs where it's more scalable, because it'd be really expensive for them to work with me one-on-one. So we're starting to do the small groups, and eventually we'll do it with really big groups, just like Tony does. But like 1,000 salespeople, entrepreneurs, coaches, people that own shit, like how do they deal with stress? And when they have something triggering them, what are they making it mean about people or themselves or the situation? How do we change that to make people more empowered in their psychology, think more creatively, and act more responsively instead of reactively?
Yeah, because I think one of the things that doesn't get spoken about enough, and essentially people don't have the tools or the know-how to navigate through the stress of, I guess, everyday life, and to perform at your best every day is extremely difficult to do. And you talk about Tony standing on stage for 15 hours. Some people are up on their toes for 3 and they're exhausted, they can't stand. Yet Tony's up on his feet 15 hours a day, screaming, shouting, yelling, doing all the crazy things that he does. In your opinion and your view, how does someone create, for lack of better words, a pattern interrupt in their life to start making positive changes just every day, whether it be diet, training, as we've talked a lot about, mental or internal beliefs about ourselves. Like, if you're coming home or if you're working up in a foul mood and you're going to work and you're just like, fuck this, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to have this meeting, this shit, I don't want to do this. What's something that you do or that you tell yourself every day that could help with that?
Having like an end of day report kind of on yourself. I've got a list of values and things that I want to live. And I kind of do an end of day journal. In the morning, I have like a mission statement that I look at that reassociates to me to what I'm doing. And I've got a calendar, like every day is packed. And so I've just got like a guiding light, and I've got KPIs at the end of the day. So constant measurement and getting coached, having coaches, have somebody talk to you once a week, or being part of a community of people that are playing a game of life higher than you, that changes everything. And so, I've spent insane amounts of money on coaching. So I'm not just telling people to get coaches for no reason, but it has changed my life. And if you're wanting to be a better communicator, for example, you can join Toastmasters. It's like $35 a year, or you can find some friends and read a chapter out loud of Think and Grow Rich or some book. You can, find these people that are doing things, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. If you want to be around people that are making a ton of money and doing big stuff, yes, that costs money, and you get into those masterminds. But initially, it's just finding some people, that want to do it. For me, it was just me. Like I started out, it was just me. I didn't have anybody to do this with, and like I'd get up in the morning, sprinting, jumping rope. I would do sprints in the morning till I would often throw up like this yellow bile stuff, and I just loved it though. I just loved pushing myself, and I would go like really strict, really hardcore, and I'm entering back into another realm of it as we're developing some of these programs where I'm like on monk mode. And so when I talk about doing these extreme things of discipline, I don't live that way 360, 365, but I'll have like these periods of like 2 months where I'm full on and create these projects. And then make sure I got some light at the end of the tunnel, but I make sure that I get back immediately as quick as I can into this process of creating a life by design, not by default. And if we're not designing the life, the future, the business that we want, we're defaulting to, where we've been. And that's not growth. And if you're not growing, you're not alive. And so it just feels so much better to do it. But that process of getting ourselves to do the things that we know we need to do when we don't want to do them, that's hard. And so that takes discipline. Read that book, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And, like some of these dudes that are just amazing. And I used to have like a video running on my wall of pictures that inspired me. Because as we, in our environment, if you drive down the road, you see billboards of a Coca-Cola, all of that. Even if you're not seeing them, your subconscious mind is seeing them out the corner of your eye. And they spend billions on that marketing because they know that even if you're not staring at it, it's still influencing you by your filter. So usually I'll have pictures of things. It could be a vision board, but I'd have something in my environment that reminds me of this person I want to be. And I used to have one running all the time. Picture of Tony on there, Tom Brady, David Goggins, people that really inspired me, but things that I want to have, just really good memories of me at my best. And so I think some of that in your environment will shape your subconscious, and then visualization every day, all that stuff. I get up in the morning and I read this statement and I visualize these things are already there. And it's just creating this new identity for yourself, this new normal that you just live into throughout the day. And it's a lot of fun.
Wow, man, that's inspiring, man. That's incredible. Look, we're coming to the end of our time now, so I'll just wrap it up with one last question. Working with Tony, obviously you would have learned a lot, and you can't get everything out of in a 45-minute podcast. But to share with the audience, what would be one or two things that really stuck out for you that you learned from Tony that's made a big impact on your life?
There's so many stories I wish I could tell, but for time's sake, I would say just standards. One of the kind of the pinnacle moments of his UPW program is just raising your standards. And it's one thing to talk about that. And I've definitely had times in my life where I was talking a big game, but I wasn't living it. And so I think as a coach or a salesperson, what we're doing is we're calling somebody forward to do something that's difficult for them. And I always make this joke in my seminars. If you call a company and you're a salesperson, you call a company, you ask for the what maker, like decision maker. Like, okay, how do we get rapport with people and get them to buy into us? How do we create commonality? People like people who are like themselves or how they want to be. How are you going to connect with decision makers if you're not a decision maker? And so I think, this whole process, and I know Tony talks about it a lot, just decisions determine direction in life. Direction determines your destiny or your destination. So decisions, destination, destiny. And so you're making decisions constantly about what to focus on, what things mean, and who you want to be. And a lot of these decisions that you're making are unconscious. And so the process of taking conscious control over the decisions that you've made, what they need to be in alignment with who you want to be in your life, is absolutely key. And I think a reason people in general, not just salespeople, struggle, it's their indecision about who they want to be, what they want their life to look like. And so they're just they're reading the book, they're going through the moments, they haven't made real decisions. And there's that classic line, most people have heard it, a decision comes from the Latin word desire, meaning to cut off. So you cut off any other possibility, you've decided. And so we decide, we commit, we resolve, and we make something happen. And so I think if we are going to be in the business of getting people to make decisions on the spot, it's really incongruent for us to ask people to do things that we're not willing to do ourselves. And so we have to look internally and make really strong decisions, cut things, people, foods, whatever it is out of our life, constantly be upgrading our decision-making process. And it's not easy for you. But if you do the difficult thing for you, you will feel better about calling somebody to the standard to do it for themselves. And so it really comes down to congruency and living it, living at a standard, living as a decision maker, and then calling people forward to do the same thing because it feels so darn good, and we want that for them.
Well, that's let's take away from that, Eli. Thank you so much for your time on the show. Really, really appreciate it, mate. I know you're a busy guy. A lot of insightful things that were shared today. So, mate, thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you've learned something from today's episode and know the next steps to focus on in your business. Want more resources to jumpstart your journey? Click the link in the show notes to see what else I have to offer and book a call with myself to jumpstart your business and make shit happen. I specialize in helping people turn their passion into six-figure businesses to replace your 9-to-5 through online education and high-ticket coaching. If this is something that interests you, you can reach out to me through any of my social media outlets in the description below.